Hey guys, how you doing? It's John Paul Gates, aka John the Film Actor, and I would like to say Happy New Year to all my followers and fans throughout the world. In fact, I'd like to say Happy New Year in four different languages. So in French, Bonne Année. In Spanish, Feliz Anno Nuevo. In Italian, Felici Anno Nuovo. And finally in German, Frohes neues Jahr. Frohes neues Jahr. Okay? Anyway, welcome to the fourth episode in Secrets of the Movie Actors, where I talk in a chronological order all my films that I've starred in since 2000 to the present day. Currently, I've got 111 credits on IMDb, of which there are 92 feature films or movies. So the fourth movie that I was lucky to star in, and I suppose this was the start of me being touted as an antagonist as opposed to a protagonist. In other words, I'm playing a villain. So it's a film called Winter Warrior. It's on IMDb. It's also on Amazon, still on Amazon even today. It was shot in 2002, in the winter of 2002, up in Bonnie, Scotland. And in it, I play a villain. I play Ida. And it was my fourth collaboration with Scottish film production Palm Tree, headed by Robbie Moffat and Mary Fraser Sutherland. And so we went up to Scotland, and basically the storyline is it's set just after the 8-year war that divided the Celtic nations in 573 AD. And because the Celtic nations were divided, it opened up an opportunity for the Angles from Germania to invade. So I suppose it's the best way to describe it. It's a low-budget version of Vikings meets Game of Thrones. So anyway, as I say, in it I play Ida, the leader of the Angle tribe that lands in Northumbria and then makes their way up to Scotland. And in it, obviously from the Angles' perspective, they're looking to bed down for the winter and trade various slaves in order to make their lot better during the winter time. So as I say, I played Ida, the Angle. I had about 8 members in my team, and I suppose the best way to describe it, it's a little bit like a military formation where you have the leader who tends to lead and 7 specialists that are specialists in their own particular field. Some are good with their knives, some are good with axes, some are good with swords, and some are seers, able to see into the future. I star with, I should say my co-stars are James Watson. James Watson was in the TV series Dune. Victoria Pritchard, who's a reasonably well-known TV actress, having appeared in The Royal Today, EastEnders, and Hollyoaks. And finally, Italian actress Ilaria Delia, who had the great fortune of having a starring role in Martin Scorsese's Gangs of New York. So anyway, yes, we filmed it in 2002. I remember we flew in, the actors who were playing the Angles, we flew into Glasgow Prestwick Airport. And the first thing we had to do, having arrived there, is have our heads shaved. not completely shaved off, but we had to have what's called Mohicans. Robbie, the director, wanted a certain look, and he thought the best way to, I suppose, illustrate the protagonists and the villains and identify with them is to have them all with Mohicans. So I remember we went into this. We just got off at Glasgow Airport. I remember Mary Fraser Sutherland picked us up, and we went straight to the barbers, and all of us, particularly myself, who had quite a always pride myself on the hair that I had. We all had our locks shaved, and then after that, obviously, we went to our accommodation. I remember we had to drive quite a way up to Fort William. And I remember we stayed in this yellow house. It was called the Yellow House, and it was this big Victorian, I don't know, 8-9 bedroom house with high ceilings, obviously akin to the period of the Victorian. And yeah, we had good times there. And then we stayed, depending on where we were shooting, because we had a lot of location changes. We shot for about 3 weeks, and the film was actually shot to film enthusiasts over there. It was shot on Super 16, and yeah, as I say, we went to these cottages. So when we moved from location to location, we went to a different cottage or different location. I actually sustained an injury whilst I was shooting this film, because obviously it was very physical, and I pride myself on doing my own stunts. So obviously I had to wield a not a broadsword, but just an ordinary sword. And what I can tell you is that you know, it's very important, like most actors will say, to be warmed up, because when you're about to shoot, you know, you've got to give the impression that you're a soldier and you've been doing this for a long time, otherwise it doesn't look right. So luckily, prior to shooting, I think we shot around about October 2002 for 3 weeks. But before that, we were trained by a stunt director, a choreographer, just in basic moves, but also just to get used to handling weapons. And at that time, I didn't have much stage combat experience. Of course, that was worth its weight in gold. So we did round about, say, about 5 or 6 days, myself and the other angles, just to get familiar with handling weapons. So yeah, so as I say, it was shot in 2002 by Palm Tree. It was my 4th production with them. And what I would say is that, you know, it's really important, and I pride myself throughout my career on having worked with a director at least once or even more. You know, the most important thing as actors is that, you know, obviously be good, but never ever bring your problems on set, or indeed give the impression that you are a diva. So always try and be part of the production, as it were. And, you know, like with anything, from my perspective, I've always found this throughout my career, is that it doesn't matter what production you're working on or how much you're getting paid, you always give the best performance, whether you're being paid, you know, £100 a day or £1,000 a day. It's always the same performance, because your face, this face, is on the chopping block, right? And irrespective of how good the editor is, you know, at the end of the day, he can only work with the material and the content that you've given them. So I think that's really, really important, you know, to keep those relationships and really go and the extra mile, in the same way that, you know, a dedicated footballer will always give a better performance, you know, with the more they train and the more they stay after the training's actually finished. You know, I mean, David Beckham, for example, would always practice his free kicks after the training finished at Manchester United. You know what I mean? You know, so he'd always spend a couple of hours before, and in the same way, then actor has to do the same sort of thing. He has to keep on going, keep on honing and perfecting his or her craft. So yeah, so as I say, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say I was a fantastic swordsman at that time, but certainly I had that 5 or 6 days rehearsal beforehand, where obviously we were being taught by the stunt coordinator. You know, we got to know what battle scenes we were going to do, and obviously that stood me in good stead. I remember, funny enough, just talking about little interesting pieces of action. There were two things, actually. I remember I was wielding the sword, and I pulled the sword back, and of course the cameraman, who actually was Robbie at the time, he wanted to get really in close to see Ida's perspective, almost like a POV. And although we rehearsed this scene time and time again, he decided to change the angle at the last minute. And of course, I was so much into the character of Ida that as I brought the sword back and then swiped, I almost inadvertently took his head off. I suppose after that, I was always known as JP Rules or JP Kills. But anyway, that's an interesting one. And then also when I do the final, I come to my death scene one by one. James Watson, who plays Fingal, who's the protagonist, the Celtic mercenary soldier who returns from, you know, the 8-year battle that divided the Celtic nations in 573 AD. When he returns home, obviously he's trying to release Victoria Pritchard's character, who's the Jewish slave that I, as the Anglo leader, trying to sell to, so we can get passage back to Germania. He's killing us off one by one, and at the end, I remember we did this fight sequence, which, as I say, was rehearsed. But what's interesting about it is that, you know, there are certain scenes on set that either go wrong, or some actors may potentially get hurt. And on this occasion, I remember. So he's wielding a broadsword, and I've got an ordinary sword. And the character loses his sword, so he pulls out a knife, a dagger. And at this point, something went wrong. We changed the choreography, and James, bless his cotton socks, I think I opened up his arm at some point. You know, it was such a not a terrible injury, but he had a cut of about an inch. You know, but he didn't need any stitches. It wasn't as bad as that. It was just really a graze. But he returned the favor. So when we start grappling after the weapons have disappeared, he ends up punching me one on the chin, which actually connected. So I felt that. So I suppose he was getting his own back, which does often happen. I mean, some actors may get slightly alienated from that, but for me, it all lends to the character. I mean, as long as the guy doesn't break my jaw, or, you know, I sustain a broken bone, then that's fine. You know, to me, that's all part of the character. And really, I mean, let's face it, if you're playing a soldier and you're playing somebody who rapes and pillages, then of course you're going to get your fair share of action, and you're going to get your fair share of blows. So that was kind of interesting. Just talking about another injury I sustained. I remember, obviously we wore all the the appropriate attire for that period, and I remember I had this Nordic helmet, and bloody cold, I have to say, putting it on in the morning. It's and it had chainmail at the back, which made it even colder and also heavy as well. So the chainmail was connected to the back of the helmet. So of course it built up my neck muscles over the 3 weeks, But anyway, I remember one of the fight sequences, I can't remember which character I was fighting, or Ida was fighting, I should say, rather. And anyway, the helmet actually rolled off. And so we're doing the fight sequence. And I think I'm grappling with the other actor, and the actor ends up pushing me off. And I take off to, because as actors we have to sell the movement. What I didn't realize was where the location of my helmet was, and as a result, what I do is I land down, and unfortunately, to break my fall, I put out my elbow, my left elbow. So of course, my elbow cracked. Well, it didn't crack, but it certainly, you could hear this noise as my left elbow goes onto the helmet. And I remember, I thought I'd broken it, and so did everybody else, but luckily it was just badly swollen. But unfortunately, even though I had a really hot bath afterwards, and then applied a lot of ice to take down the swelling. The first 48 hours after that, it's slightly tender. Luckily, I didn't have to do any fight sequences, because Robbie very kindly changed the schedule to accommodate me to recover and convalesce from that injury. But it just shows you things can go wrong. So what we're talking about here. So on that shoot, I nearly decapitate the director. I get punched by my co-star, and also I nearly break my elbow from something just going wrong, so that's 3 instances. But on action films, you're going to get that, it doesn't matter whether you're me, Sly Stallone, or Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise does all his own stunts, and he's really good at it. And the only difference is that Tom Cruise gets paid, a lot of money for his films, whereas I get proportionally less. So as I say, this was my 4th film with Palm Tree, and this film, Winter Warrior, actually was the start of a trilogy of Celtic warrior films done by Palm Tree. And their next one, The Bone Hunter, which is also on Amazon, starring James Watson. They brought in an American actor to play the Anglo warrior in that. But what I did do, I returned for the final installment in the series, which was Axe Raiders, and I played my twin brother in that, Eric the Axe, which I'll come on to in the next 2 or 3 videos, because I think that was my 8th or 9th movie, because I did quite a few things in between. But in terms of the as I say, the film, it's an action adventure film in the vein of Game of Thrones meets Vikings. Obviously, it was shot on a low budget, micro budget, but it's as I say, it's still on Amazon today. Amazon rest of the world, English speaking territories, And it had a distinction in 2004. It was in the top 10 DVD chart in Russia, which is quite an achievement. And I actually saw, myself being dubbed in Russian. And to all those Russian speaking people out there, Привет, как дела? Привет, как дела? Anyway, yeah, so it was something I really enjoyed. And as I say, it was my fourth movie, and really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the experience. Loved working with Palm Tree again. I think, I suppose, hindsight's always a good thing. If we'd have had a bit more budget, then maybe we could have put more into costumes. But other than that, it was a great experience. And I have to say that, shooting in Scotland, I mean, of all the places I've been to around the world to shoot, Scotland's one of my favourite places. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's, it's just a beautiful landscape. Bloody cold, but it's a pleasure to shoot up there. And just talking about freezing conditions, as I said, we shot there in October 2002. It might have even been later, but just from memory. I mean, let's face it, it is nearly 20 years. But anyway, I remember there was a scene also where it was snowing, and the scene is where Ida, I think, lays the law down to his merry men. In essence, they could, lose their lives, and they have to get serious about finding passage back to Germania. Otherwise, they're going to have to be in the Celtic homelands at a time where it's probably not wise because it's so bloody cold. Anyway, I remember doing this scene and just talking about the technicalities of being a film actor. I had, as I say, 8 members of my crew, my band of merry men, and I had to deliver a line basically to each one of them. And the way we do it as actors is we shoot the master, and then sometimes, depending on how close the camera is, what shot the director wants, and in this particular case, I had to do pretty much an extreme close-up, so I couldn't move at all. But I had to have 8 different eye lines, and it was freezing cold. And also we had to do it in such a way that we had to cheat out the telegraph wires. So that was even more difficult. So I couldn't move hardly at all. Okay, I got the technicality of just, moving my eyes to illustrate that I was, communicating with another actor or another one of my merry men. But I do remember that my teeth started to chatter because it was so cold. And I was doing this for probably, I did maybe about 6 or 7 takes. And each time, we had technical difficulties because we were shooting on film then. So of course, as an actor, we get the dreaded call of, oh, there's a hair in the gate. Which means you might do a great performance, but unfortunately, from a technical perspective, it's a bum take. It's a take you can't use. So anyway, so as I say, I'm chattering and everything, and so basically, it was about 6 takes on each close-up. So that's probably about 40 odd takes. So of course that was, almost like an hour or two. So yeah, I remember watching the rushes, it was quite amusing to see myself chattering, because a couple of those takes you couldn't use. So in addition to the bum takes as a result of technical issues and my chattering teeth. I think we probably only had usable takes. Out of the 40 takes, we probably only had about, what, 12 or 13, I think, so that's another example of what you have to do as a film actor. And what's most important, I was saying at the beginning of the program that it's very important to establish a relationship, and also not get annoyed. If there's a technical issue, you've got to keep focused and be professional. And that was really an example of me being professional, because let's face it, I wanted to deliver a performance even though I was freezing cold. And I was out there for a couple of hours, and it's as I say, as a film actor, it's all about being very technical, and you have to master that first and foremost, because if you don't, you always got to realize that someone else is going to be there potentially in the background to take your place. So you're only as good as your last job. So that's it really, guys. I mean, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I've missed out. No, I don't really think so. So thanks for listening. Appreciate it. If you'd like to subscribe, you know what to do. Hit the button on the right-hand side as you see me. I've also got a Patreon account. So if you'd like to support me from a little as £1 or $1 every month, you can do so, which gives you exclusive access to films that I'm working on, also exclusive access to these videos, and also, as you know, I'm involved in documentaries as well. I present and direct documentaries, so I can give you exclusive access to be the first ones to watch one of my docs, and in the process of editing and etc. So yeah, I mean, as I say, appreciate you taking the time. As I say, Happy New Year, and join me on the next one, Secrets of the Movie Actor. Cheers.